I remember like it was yesterday, about 11 years ago, I was attending a service, and there was a prophetic person there. She was ministering the word, and after she finished ministering, service was dismissed, and I went up at the end and I shook her hand, and while I was shaking her hand, she began to prophesy to me, and she said, "Have you started your church yet?" And I said, "No." She said, "I see you praying. As a matter of fact, I can see you kneeling at your bed, and I hear you saying to God, I'm not going to do this unless you tell me to. God, you've got to make it clear." And when she said those words, those were the words in a prayer that I had prayed about 3 or 4 days prior, verbatim. And she said to me, "I hear you praying that prayer, and God says, I've called you to do it, and it is time." After having gotten that understanding, I knew order and I understood order. I was serving as an assistant pastor at a church here in Canton. And I knew then, one, I've gotten a voice, I've heard the voice, I've gotten a word from God, but I understand order, and I know I need to be released. And so I called a meeting with my pastor and sat down with him, and I said, "Pastor Fields, I believe that God is calling me to start a ministry, and I believe that it is time." And he looked across his desk and he said, "I've been waiting to have this conversation with you." He said, "I've known it for a while, and I've been waiting on you to sit down and tell me what you know you've heard God say. And I want you to know I'm with you 100%. We walked away from that meeting, and that was in September or so of that year. This was 2000, year 2000. And he said, "I'm going to be with you to walk with you through the process." He said, "You let me know when you want your exit date to be." And we mutually decided that my last Sunday would be mid-November. He was going to give me about 6 weeks or so to visit other churches, to pray about my vision, to get the vision for this house. And we launched our first service in January of 2001. And it has been a tremendous ride since that day. Tremendous ride. If you've ever been on a road trip, you know that while you're driving, some of the way you have an easy passage. You get on those great roads where there's nobody on the road with you, and you can put the pedal to the metal and ride it out. And in the process of riding out, you run into rough weather and you get slowed down. You slow down a little bit, but you keep driving. You keep driving. I remember, and who knows when this was probably 20 years ago, maybe longer than that. I remember being a kid, riding in the car with my grandfather, who's here today, and it started raining real bad. And while we were traveling, we went under a bridge. And when we went under the bridge, there were several cars that had pulled over under the bridge. And we kept driving, and I said, "Paul, you know, it's raining really hard. Why don't we just pull over like them and wait on it to stop?" My grandfather explained to me that we could not know how long it was going to be raining. He said we could choose to stop like the rest of these, but we might be on the side of the road for an extended period of time. He further explained to me that just because it's raining right here in this area, that just as sure as you keep on driving, you're going to drive out of the rain. And as a kid, I learned that lesson. So over the last 10 years, we've had some smooth sailing, times where we've been able to put the pedal to the metal and we're seeing blessings coming from the north, the south, the east, and the west. And just as we shouted about those blessings, we ran into some rough weather. But we learned a lesson as a child: keep on driving. Because if you keep on driving, we're going to come out of this storm. I appreciate so much those who at some point along the way decided to get on board. I was sharing a couple weeks ago on a Wednesday night. Bishop Jakes was sharing. He said pastoring and being in ministry is just like a bus driver. You get the vision and you know, as a bus driver, I'm leaving Atlanta and I'm on the way to Detroit. But from Atlanta to Detroit, there are multiple stops along the way. The one thing that is constant on that bus is the driver of the bus. Because every time the driver comes to one of the stops along the way, people get off and people get on. Are you hearing what I'm saying? But just as sure as the driver left Atlanta, the driver is going to land in Detroit. And when the driver lands in Detroit, those who were supposed to arrive in Detroit with him will be on the bus. I thank God for those of you who are on the bus. I've been driving this bus now for 10 years. The interesting thing is, the very first prophetic declaration that was given in the house was, "It's raining blessings." And it certainly is raining blessings. It's almost as if we have come full circle. It's raining blessings and we're standing under God's open heavens. We look back over the last 10 years and we're appreciative of all that God has done. And prophetically, we look forward with great expectation for the things that God has in store for us. The truth is, we've only just begun.